I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thank you for joining me once again on my channel on data analytics and data engineering. In this episode, we're going to talk about Snowflake, which is a big data platform that I've been interested in for some time. And what we're going to do is we're going to cross over our Python playlist with our data engineering playlist, and we're going to connect Python to Snowflake, and we're going to do our first query against Snowflake in preparation for some more advanced stuff that will come in some upcoming episodes. So without further ado, let's get to our Python on Snowflake. Okay, so our goal for today's exercise is to connect to Snowflake using Python and run a simple query where we are going to query the version of Snowflake that we're connected to. And in order to do that, we're going to download some stuff, and we're going to install a few things and then try them out. So the first thing that I did was I checked my own version because Snowflake connector requires Python 3.6 minimum, and the pip version 19 minimum. So as you can see, I had the pip version that seemed to be compatible with the installation, and they recommend to install some prerequisites using this format. This is part of the Snowflake documentation that's online. So I went ahead and tried it their way, and which is to install a specific version of the connector. I went ahead and did it this way. So they ask you to install this big long string, and it sort of matches a version of the connector to the version of Python that you have. I had 3.8.2, which is not very new, but it's also not very old at this point. And so I chose to get the 2.3.9 connector and install the requirements for my version accordingly. And this exercise was not entirely successful. I did get a bunch of the stuff installed, but at the end of the day there was some kind of misconnection between all of that. So you can see that I did get a whole bunch of stuff installed, which is great. But however, this installation didn't go according to plan, and I was forced to just use the fallback is to just install the library straight from the Python connector site and let it work out all of the versions for you. There must have been something missing in my installation. So this installation went on for a while, and got a whole bunch of different packages, and installed a bunch of things there, and then it sort of stalled at one point, and then errored out. And I tried a couple of times, and it didn't really work out for me. So what I did was, like I said, I went and just installed it and let it determine the packages. So this first part was successful, but the actual installation of the connector was not successful. So there you can see I got a whole bunch of stuff and getting ready to support the installation of the Snowflake connector or Python connector, and that was a success. So the next step after installing the prerequisites was to actually install the Snowflake connector with the appropriate version, and that did not quite work. But here's the installation. This may work for you. If you get your versions, make sure that you check the versions, your versions, and put them in accordingly, according to what's going to work there. And so I hit go on that one, and this one went on for a while, and then it eventually just errored out, and did not work. I wasn't sure that I wanted to go through all of this in order to determine what the cause was. And so I did try one thing, which was to install a newer version of pip to see if that would make a difference. And so in order to do that, I did the Python m pip install and then do the upgrade and upgrade pip, and that will put a newer version of pip on your machine, although mine was version 19, which should have worked. So I upgraded my pip and then I tried it again. So after the newer version of pip installed correctly, I went ahead and gave it another go. And in order to do that, I just went back to my previous command, which was to install the Snowflake connector 2.3.9 and see what happens there. And I'll jump ahead just to save time to here, where you can see it arrows out once again. And at that point, I decided not to try and troubleshoot every little thing in here, as opposed to I just installed it directly without putting the version name in there. And then it did take some time for it to install, but it eventually went back about 5 or 6 minor version revisions, and it worked. So as you can see in this time lapse, it's sort of looping down through the versions to see if there's a compatibility. And I think one of the reasons that they don't like this method on the Snowflake site is because it does take a while, and it takes quite a bit of download space and things like that. And once it found my version, it sort of went pretty quickly, and it installed an older version, slightly older version than the most current, and that is exactly what I wanted to see for my Snowflake connector for Python installation. However, it did install just as I wanted it to, with a few gotchas there, and so as you do your installation, if you run into those troubles, you can get past those using the method I showed there, and we're good to go. So I started a new Python shell with a new Python file, and I'm going to import my Snowflake connector and create a connection string to my Snowflake instance that I created by creating a new user account on Snowflake. So you can create a connection on Snowflake using the connect method there, and that's going to return a connection, and you can put your username, your password, which I've changed already by the time I release this video. Let it snow, and then you'll add your account name to the connection, and that's going to set you up in order to do some querying and all kinds of other operations using Python on your Snowflake instance. And so from there, after you make a connection, you can do your cursor and create a cursor, and we'll put this inside a try catch block, and we'll say cursor.execute, select current version, and that's going to do a query against our instance, and it's going to ask for the current version of our Snowflake instance and return it so that we can take a look at that in our Python script here. So we'll set our row equal to our cursor.fetch1, and then we can print out the row, and we'll take the first element, or first element of the row, and finally cs.close. So we'll close our cursor, and then outside of the block we'll close our connection, and then we'll hit F5 and see what we get from that. And ideally what we'd like to see is our Snowflake version after we hit F5. So there we go. I've hit F5. It's going to do its query against Snowflake, and that's exactly what we want to see. 5.2.2, and that means we are set up and ready to go to do some operations in Python, and we'll do those in upcoming episodes. Stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion about using Python with Snowflake and getting your first connection up and running. If you like what you saw, please give the video a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet, and click the bell when you see the bell so that you'll be notified of any new content that I put up on the channel. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to put them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you might have. Have a great day, have a safe day, and I'll catch you next time.